that up a little bit. It'll take you about 20 seconds. Audio check 1 2 3. 1 2 3. Audio check.
Hey guys, thanks for coming, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? Is that good? All right. Well, hello. Welcome to Georgetown Ventures Spring Demo Day. My name, yeah. My name is Andrew Bulgarino. I'm the current CEO of GV, and I know that myself and everyone in GV here tonight is thrilled to have all of our guests here and welcome all of our founders and hear them pitch. We can't wait to showcase everything that we've done this semester. Now, before we turn it over to the founders, I do want to tell you a little bit more about GV and our story. We always try to operate GV itself as our own startup. So we were founded in 2017. We're Georgetown's only student-run startup accelerator. Every semester, we take a cohort of roughly 8 or so Georgetown-affiliated founders, and we provide them with a team of undergraduate consultants who help them with everything they need, ranging from business support, tech support, and creative support. In our brief history, we've worked with about 100 plus startups, which have gone on to collectively raise over $35 million in funding. And we've really accelerated our progress with the most recent few cohorts. I'm even proud to announce that we had our first official dropout last fall. Some of you may know Stephen Peng, founder of Orbit, who I don't know if he's here tonight, but he did register, so he might be on the live stream. Hi, Stephen. But for those of you that don't know Stephen, he's absolutely crazy. He built a device in his dorm room that controls the way you feel and perceive motion in your brain. Absolutely nuts. But he actually met one of his first big investors at our spring demo day last year. And he finally decided to drop out last fall and pursue his venture full time. But that's just the kind of founders that we work with over the last few years, and we're really excited about that progress. I do like to joke now that GV unofficially incentivizes its founders to drop out of Georgetown, but the school obviously doesn't like that marketing too much, so we try not to say that too often. But nevertheless, it's a great progress indicator. That is a joke, but it does underlie our long-term mission, which is, I would say, twofold. It's to increase the number of entrepreneurs within the Georgetown community, but it's also to provide undergraduates with a really unparalleled chance to work with a startup and really impact them from the early stages. Our members of GV constantly pride themselves about their willingness to go full hands-on and boots on the ground with their founders. Whether it's testing an early prototype or rigorously interviewing their friends for product feedback or selling soup in Red Square, we did have members do that. We love and encourage every team to just get out there into the real world. By doing that, we're really one of the few places at Georgetown where a founder can really explore and test their crazy ideas. We give them a chance to go into the real world and talk to real customers, to be crazy enough to even consider the idea of dropping out. And I do think that is part of the reason that founders do want to work with us every semester. It certainly goes both ways, though. Nowhere else at Georgetown could young college kids like ourselves have a chance to influence the course of a startup, to define the direction of their entire business. I feel really privileged and lucky that the founders in our cohorts entrust us with their dreams. Maybe they're the crazy ones, because we are college kids, but that sheer two-way passion is really what defines the GV community between the member and the founder. And I hope that you all get a glimpse of that two-way passion tonight and find that it's really infectious. Now, of course, we couldn't do it without some support, so I do want to quickly thank Professor Reed, Jacob at the Venture Lab, and Aveline and the entire Georgetown Entrepreneurship Department for constantly backing us and our mission at GV. I also want to thank the two EIRs who sponsor us, Jess and Ken, for their support and advice. And also want to thank you to our guest speaker, Eric Wu, who flew all the way from California to be here tonight. Now, that kind of support from Georgetown entrepreneurs is exactly what drives us to put more time into GV than to our classes. I know I've talked a while and are ready to get to the founders, so I won't talk for much longer, but I do want to just conclude by talking briefly about the purpose of our demo day. So tonight is the culminating event of our semester with these founders. It's the chance for them to showcase, pitch, and explain the progress that they've made with their startups, both with and without GV. They'll also talk about their next steps and any asks that they may have of the audience. Now, I encourage everyone in the audience to really listen and take to heart these asks that they propose. Our last few demo days have really shown me the power that one small conversation can have. Like I mentioned, Stephen got his first event at this event last spring, but also our startups in our fall cohort last semester got introduced to key mentors, investors, and even customers at our demo day in the fall. I'm sure that similar things will happen for this cohort. There'll be a chance to talk to all the founders at the reception following the event, and there'll also be free food if that's not incentive enough. Now, with that being said, I hope you enjoy hearing from all these founders in our cohort. I'll now turn it over to one of our members, Grace McManus, who is going to be emceeing tonight's event, and she'll introduce the first pitch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Can we have another round of applause for him? Like, he's crushed it. Not to get too sappy, but he's truly done an amazing job as CEO this semester, and GV would not be the same without him and all the hard work he's put into it, as well as I think Mike is sitting over there, former CEO. They've both done amazing work for GV, and we just wouldn't be where we are now without them. I'm super excited and only slightly terrified to be emceeing Demo Day because it's truly one of my favorite days of the semester when it comes to GV events. Especially for GV members, it's so cool to see how far each of the founders and startups have come since back in startup orientation in January, and to see how much some of them have changed. Cough, cough, Vesta. I think just to give a quick overview of the night, before we get started, we're going to begin with pitches from the Launchpad cohort, followed by a moderated discussion with our amazing guest speaker, Eric Wu. Then hear from our Venture Accelerator startups before some quick closing remarks and a reception. Moving on to what we're all actually here for, the pitches. I'm super excited to introduce our first startup in Launchpad this semester, Vesta. Last fall, these two second-year MBA students came up with the idea for a fintech startup. However, over the past few months and during their time working with GV, the founders have made some huge pivots and are now working to create an online marketplace for traditional Hispanic foods and snacks. Please join me in welcoming the founders, Jose and Santi, to the stage to talk about Vesta.
Hi, we are Vesta. We are like Instacart, but for Latino foods and products in the US. We aim to connect Latino consumers with Latino business owners. We want to help Latinos consumers to find and get their favorite products delivered to their homes. But we also want to help Latinos business owners by giving them visibility and also by allowing them to reach more customers so they can make more money. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jose Farias, and joining me is my co-founder, Santiago Stein. We are both MBA students from Venezuela and Colombia. And ever since starting our MBA program 2 years ago, we have had a lot of conversations about the different pain points that the Latino community have in the US. And these talks led us to take entrepreneurship classes together, like a Startup Factory, where we built Farview, a streaming platform for Central Americas in the DMV area, and also Warren in our Lean Startup class, EdgeTech providing mental health assistance for Latinos in the US. Our most recent project was Vesta, where we actually started out wanting to address the issue of predatory interest high rates that Latinos usually face in the US. I experienced this problem myself. 6 months ago, I received a loan offer with an APR of 160%. And at that moment, I thought to myself, if this is happening to me, what are other Latinos in this country going through? So you might be wondering yourself, so what is special about the Latino community? What's so much emphasis on the Latinos? And the truth is that the Latino community is extremely important today in the US. Latinos make up to 20% of the US population, and it is expected to reach 25% by 2050. If we consider the 2.8 trillion GDP of the Latino as a separate economy, it will be the 5th largest economy in the world. And actually, it is growing faster than China and India. Those numbers aren't just economic facts. They represent an economic force that can no longer be overlooked. As we mentioned, our first idea was to build a P2P lending platform to give better loan options for Latinos in the US. But at the beginning, we just wanted to build something and then just consider what our customer really needed and wanted. But before doing it, we wanted to just listen to them. So we went out there, talking with Latinos business owners, Latinos families, and anyone we could to get a close understanding of the financial needs and desires of the Latinos. And that's actually when we pivoted. After talking with dozens of Latinos, we discovered that their major pain point wasn't far beyond just having good, tailored financial services. They didn't even have a financing problem. What we found out is that 98% of the Latinos we spoke to said that keeping an emotional relationship with their cultural roots was extremely important. And actually, it was something that they were missing and lacking. So what did this mean?
So what we discovered was that the problem wasn't a financing problem. It was actually a lack of connection. We started talking with other fellow Latinos here in the US, as was mentioned, over 100 of them. And we started thinking, how can we come up with a solution to that problem? How can we connect Latinos to their homeland, their families, their culture, and their roots? And that is when we discovered that food, as most of you might know, is a gateway for Latinos to feel closer to home, to our culture. For example, me, when I'm feeling homesick, which now doesn't happen that much, but it used to happen a lot, I try to cook the home dishes that I used to cook with my family on Sunday dinners. But I found it every time extremely difficult to find those Latin ingredients. And it's not because they're not here. You can actually find them in small grocery stores, Latin grocery stores, but they don't have a great online presence. And that's when we came up with Vesta Shopping. Now, there are three main aspects to Vesta Shopping. The first one, a personalized interface, which allows for a personally tailored experience. The second one, community connection, where our consumers can post their comments and reviews and create a hub for cultural exchange. And the third one, small business support. By increasing the online presence of these small Latino grocery stores, they can increase their revenues as well. Now, the data here is amazing. According to a McKinsey study, Latinos in the US have $159 billion that they're not spending because of an unsatisfied demand. What does this mean? They have the money, they just don't know what to spend it on because there's no products aimed at them. This obviously can be food and ingredients from their homeland. We also know that they're not going to spend the entire $159 billion on food and ingredients. But we do know that on average, Latinos spend 13% of their income in food and beverages. So we're talking about a $21 billion market, which is currently untapped. Now, I want to show you our first MVP, which just went live this weekend. So basically, if some of you have seen Mercado Libre, it works similar. You go, you choose the country where you want your product of origin, you choose your product, and then you can see if you can order it online or go at the store and pick it up. Now, we're very happy to say that our Google Ads campaign over the weekend, just 2 days, was impressive. 630 impressions in just 2 days with our first MVP. A 13.8 CTR, which is way above the industry average of 1%. Now, we're currently in our pre-product market fit, but this is where we're going. Phase 1, to finish launching Vesta online. Phase 2, the adaptation, so seeing the data we get from our customers online and continue to evolve our MVP. And phase 3, the expansion, which is bolstering our current offerings. Now, our asks. We have 2 main asks for you today. The first one, we would like mentorship in e-commerce development, preferably consumer goods, hopefully Latin American consumer goods. And second, we need a chief technology officer to come and join our team. So please help us build a bridge to home. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jose and Santi. That sounds so cool. It's so cool to see how far you guys have come since orientation in January. The new MVP looks amazing. Next up, we have Mesmo. Mesmo is a platform that uses AI to scan screens and connect consumers with links to the products they see on their screens in real time. Please join me in welcoming Nick, a first-year MBA student at Georgetown, and Andrew, the CTO of Mesmo and a systems engineer at an IT solutions firm, up to the stage to talk a little bit more about Mesmo and how they're planning to use it to revolutionize online shopping.
Hi guys, I'm Nick.
And I'm Andrew.
And we're the co-founders of
Mesmo.
This past January, the Georgetown Ventures Club announced they'd be supporting our startup with key technical and creative services. And thanks to their help, what we've been able to accomplish is nothing short of amazing.
So what is Mesmo? To the average user, Mesmo is a mobile application that uses AI technology to identify products in TV shows and movies. Then Mesmo provides a list of e-commerce links specifically catered to the user's preferences. For businesses, we are developing a data analytics tool suite that will provide new insight into product performance, advertising effectiveness, and
Performance reports.
product performance. This May, we will release the Mesmo MVP in the Apple App and Google Play stores.
But before getting into the details of what we're building, I want to tell you why we're building it. Other direction? Okay. So last summer, I was blessed with the opportunity to interview for Georgetown's MBA program. Truth be told, after accepting the interview offer, I panicked. I looked through my wardrobe, and I wasn't sure if I had the perfect suit for the occasion. The next day, I was watching an amazing TV show right here, and I saw Harvey Specter wearing the sharpest suit, and I knew I needed it, that exact one. I looked online, I checked blogs, looked in every corner of the internet, but I couldn't find it, no matter how hard I looked. I felt frustrated that despite having the power of the internet, I couldn't find that exact product. But then it dawned on me that other people must be suffering from this same exact problem. And so I teamed up with some close friends and the Georgetown community to develop a solution.
Hello again, I'm Andrew Benente. I am the CTO of Mesmo. I was the first person Nick brought onto the team back in October, and with my work experience, I am perfectly suited to tackle this problem. I currently work as a space systems engineer, managing complex projects and designing dynamic and scalable systems. And previously, I was a talent manager and licensing assistant out in Los Angeles, so I understand the industry demands driving our solution. Our other founder is Mike Abispor. He is our chief engineer. Mike brings a wealth of experience from his background in finance and full stack development.
Last but not least, I'm a consultant for a government IT security program and current MBA student.
And we'd like to give a huge shout out to the Georgetown Ventures team that helped us this semester.
Okay, yeah, they delivered some key services. They delivered over 100 customer surveys. They developed a website for us, and they developed the front end of the mobile application, which we're going to show you shortly.
We really couldn't have done it without your help. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. But enough about us. We want to tell you guys what we're building. So what you see above on the screen here are versions 1, 2, and 3 of the Mesmo mobile app. We wanted a sleek yet functional design. We tested multiple buttons, logos, layouts, and designs, and we conducted over 100 customer surveys in order to land on the final version of the Mesmo MVP you see on the right side of the screen.
We wanted the Mesmo app to be simple and intuitive. Think Shazam, but for streaming movies. Simply click the big blue button in the center of the screen to take a screenshot, then click any of the objects in the screenshot that you want to search, and then finally scroll through a list of e-commerce links to buy the exact product that you want. It's that simple.
All right. So you're probably wondering, why is this the right time for Mesmo? Well, let me tell you. So we are the first ones in this niche, in specific niche. So there is Google Lens, which offers reverse image capabilities, but it offers a mess to the users. They give you magazine articles, blog posts, and a vast array of unfiltered content. What we want to offer you with Mesmo is a full shopping experience. So with that, you would only get specific e-commerce links tailored to your user preferences, and you'll be able to sort, filter, and save the products that interest you. Next thing, our product exists at the cross-section of multiple massive industries. Looking at the screen, it's streaming, movie merchandise, and product placement. The fact that we're at that specific cross point means that we have tons of interest from both consumers and businesses alike. Lastly, Nesmo will be the first AI image recognition service tailored specifically for streaming.
All right, shown on screen, we have our 2024 development roadmap. It's a lot to look at. We get that, so I'll break it down a little bit. We utilize something called the Agile Development Framework and modern DevSecOps techniques to iterate continuously and update Mesmo. So we will be releasing updates throughout the year. Over the course of the year with our current staffing, we will be releasing new B2B user interface, cloud, and AI capabilities. And yeah.
That's pretty much it. But yeah, for Mesmo to succeed, we need your help. We are looking for full stack developers, skilled ones, hopefully, to join us. And then we're also looking for mentors in any one of the industries or fields above. Lastly, we're looking for investors who are interested to support our cause or just follow us along in the journey. So if you're interested in any one of those things.
All right, shout out to everybody in the audience today. Thank you for coming.
We love you.
And thank you to the Georgetown Ventures team for making streaming
Mesmo.
Great job. All right, can we get another round of applause for Mesmo? Awesome. I think that product idea is so cool. There's so many times I've been watching a TV show and loved what they're wearing, even Donna in Suits. She has some great pantsuits, and not been able to find it, so I can't wait for Mesmo to launch to fuel my shopping addiction. All right, next up we have Reservoir. Founded by recent MBA graduate James, Reservoir is working to fight fraudulent digital credentials and identities by validating and managing them on a single credentialing and identity management platform. Considering he beat our very own ex-GV member and Georgetown dropout Stephen Pang at Bark Tank last fall, I have some pretty high expectations for this pitch. Unfortunately, James couldn't be here with us today, but he recorded a video of his pitch for us to watch.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is James Azar, and I am the CEO and founder of Reservoir. I apologize for not being in person there with you in Washington, D.C. This week, I'm in Prague, working alongside my team of engineers, designers, and developers as we continue to build out our platform for a Labor Day release. I'm very excited to talk with you today about Reservoir and how we are creating the world's first fully verified resume. When I applied to business school at Georgetown just a few years ago, I had to spend nearly $1,000 to verify my undergraduate degree. Not only was this an economic challenge for me, but it also placed a significant level of effort or burden on me to verify my information. What I learned through significant amount of research was it's not only me who struggled with verifying information, it's actually an entire industry. People verification and background checks are taking far too long. It costs employers today nearly $250 billion in lost productivity every single year due to inefficient pre-employment screenings. This is only going to increase as more Gen Z and millennials change jobs more frequently. What's more, the third-party data sources that organizations rely on for the background checks is becoming increasingly full of false, inaccurate, and biased information. The FTC, in a recent report, said that nearly 40% of broker data is inaccurate or no longer accurate and will absolutely increase in inaccuracy over time. Compounding the issue even further is that organizations struggle to differentiate between what is authentic from what is not. Today, the economic impact of synthetic identity fraud on consumers, enterprises, and governments is reaching $40 billion, which will again only increase as artificial intelligence, deep fakes, and other forms of misinformation enter our economy. Businesses, organizations today need a better way to verify and validate people and the information that they are submitting. That is why Reservoir is transforming the verification process by creating the world's first fully verified resume. This platform will allow issuers like higher education, academic institutions, other organizations and businesses to issue digital credentials directly to recipients, empowering the individual with access and control over their data, not data brokers. These credentials are updated in real time and reflect the source system of the issuer for an unprecedented level of data accuracy. Lastly, recipients will now have the ability to self-verify or even considered pre-verified when applying to jobs or transacting across our network. All stakeholders will now participate on a single platform, which will unlock unparalleled efficiency and accuracy. An academic institution now can directly integrate and connect with a recipient and a verifier. Similarly, a verifier can tap into our source system to verify any information on that particular credential recipient. By connecting all of these folks on a single platform, we can drive material efficiency and accuracy. The first market we're going to break into is higher education, where we validated initial product market fit with paid pilots and extensive client interviews. Last year, we ran 2 pilots with Georgetown University that generated 20 grand in revenue. And more importantly, it helped us to prove 2 key pillars of our value proposition. On one hand, institutions were willing to pay for better, more accurate alumni information. And at the same time, on the other side of the argument is that digital native students, the Gen Zs of the world, are willing to share that demographic information in exchange for digital credentials and actually favor digital 9-to-1. I worked directly with my team at Georgetown Ventures to actually verify this information through a very comprehensive student survey where we had nearly 700 respondents. This allowed us to really hone in and identify our material business need. This research and this level of investigation allowed us to really shape our product around solving a specific pain point for a very specific customer, where we can now allow universities to benefit from accurate real-time alumni info that will allow them to increase donor revenue at a lower operational cost, will also give them the ability to regain governance and control of their data, making it harder for bad actors to misrepresent themselves in the world with fake degrees. Think the George Santoses of the world. But also, and most importantly, we're allowing universities to equip new graduates with a brand new innovative credential that unlocks true ownership, mobility, and access to data, and unlocking access in the digital ecosystem. We have assembled a fantastic team that has the vision, expertise, and track record to move fast and win. With myself as the founder and CEO, plus a team of 5 folks out of Prague, we have assembled the dream team of designers, developers, engineers, and product experts to launch by Labor Day. I'm also supported by a group of investors and advisors, including Brandon Daniels, the CEO and president of Exeger, who is a regulatory and compliance expert, the chief data officer from Yext, Christian Ward, as well as some other folks from Georgetown that are known very well around the McDonough community, as well as Georgetown entrepreneurship. We are fundraising right now to complete our platform and bring it to market. On our 4 top priorities are hiring our remaining team members, completing the design and development of our platform, establishing our go-to-market and distribution channels, and lastly, acquiring our initial enterprise customers. We are on a mission to create the world's first fully verified resume, and I really hope you join us. My name is James Azar. My contact information is below, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thanks to Georgetown Ventures, and my team over the past few months, helping us really to shape and hone our point of view and our value proposition. I can't wait to see how this team grows over the next couple of months, and how, most importantly, Reservoir enters market and starts to win new business. Thank you all. See you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, James. It's too bad that Steven isn't here to try and make up for his loss at Bark Tank, but I'm sure we'll hopefully see another matchup between these two next time. All right, and next up we have Granulins, which is a platform that uses machine learning and other analytic tools to help guide decisions in the impact investing process. Rishika, the founder of Granulins, just got her master's in international development policy from Georgetown and has since been working on building her company. Just as a little fun fact, Rishika is so passionate about Granulins that she renewed her visa status to move from India to the US just to participate in GV this semester. Rishika, we are so lucky to have you here to present with us today. Everyone, please help me in welcoming Rishika up to the stage to talk more about Granulins.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, to click it forward.
Yeah, perfect, awesome. I'll just use this one, perfect. Okay. Right. Hi everyone, my name is Rishika Jairath, and this is Stella. She is an impact investment analyst at the Environmental Defense Fund, and she has a huge problem, clearly from the screen. Stella's boss gave her an Excel sheet which had 300 variables across 10,000 data sets and asked her to pick the top 5 most important variables. Now, this was an important decision because it would go on to inform where one of their programs expands to next. Now, there are no indications of what these variables could be. Stella just has to continuously test her hunches until she can find the right ones. Now, everyone else on Stella's team advocates for different variables, making her job increasingly more tedious and confusing. Even when they do reach an agreement, they still can't be sure that their chosen variables or hunches are validated or even accurate. It is a repetitive game of guess and check with no way to verify any assumptions. There is no Stella. I was Stella at Environmental Defense Fund, or EDF, for close to 5 years in a managerial position. After dealing with this tedious process over and over, I came to the same conclusion. There has to be a better way. So, I created Granulins, a machine learning tool that fixes this tedious, lengthy process and validates these assumptions efficiently. It dramatically improves both the speed and accuracy of assessing impact investments, a tool and an approach to clear out the noise. Say I am an end user analyst or a manager at an organization. I upload the data set in its current form. I choose the predictors I choose the success or the risk criteria, based on, say, this could be profit, yield, emissions, say any key performance indicator an organization wants to learn more about. I choose the core predictors based on my hunches or the team's. You have the models run at the back end. And finally, you have a graph indicating the core predictors behind what you chose in step 1. This prediction comes with an error rate attached to it. Now, if I go back to the previous example that I took of the 300 plus variables, we whittled it down to the top 18 core predictors for a question an organization wanted to answer with their data. Now, many investors want to invest in innovations that have a positive impact on people and the planet. But currently, there is no reliable or consistent way to evaluate either process or impact of those investments in question. These assumptions tend to be subjective in nature, and the complexity of variables is far more. This is true for roughly $1.2 trillion worth of investments in the impact investing space, with no or less than adequate impact measurement systems in place. I started the customer discovery and validation process covering roughly 30 organizations across the 5 stakeholder groups that you see on the screen right there that invest in sustainability and the ESG space. This offered insights in terms of validating the problem statement. The application of the features has been done by offering the services as a concierge minimum viable product, or MVP, to organizations in the market. These were certain questions that percolated up as being specifically tedious in nature and challenging for an organization even before they reach the investment decision point, which is where Granulins and its approach comes in. The focus then was to use these questions and develop the 2 features, the machine learning as well as the cost-benefit analysis feature, with organizations in the market and their respective data sets. A website as a desktop version has been established for an end user, analyst, manager, or organization to book a customer discovery call or even a demo. The data from this exercise also offered insights into what exists in the market right now, where are the gaps, and where would Granulance come in. We are well on our way to making Intuition come to life. The proposed functionalities and features of the NBP will be continually validated and tested while working with organizations in the market, such that we're truly addressing their pain points and doing so in an intuitive way. By using these inputs, that will go on to inform the front-end development of the tool or what the end user actually interacts with. A huge shout out to the Georgetown Venture team as well as my advisors, without which we would definitely not be here. My experience to truly understand the needs and challenges in the impact investing process and what a manager and analyst would require. Thank you. My main ask essentially would be to connect with mentors in the sustainability space, even in investments or impact investments, specifically even with business sales experience or an understanding of technical products and how to put it out there in the market. Thank you so much for your time and for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you.
All right, amazing job, Rashika. And just, can we give her another round of applause for the fact that she came all the way from India to work with GV this semester? It's awesome. All right, so our final pitch from the Launchpad cohort tonight will be from Pavilion, which is an online platform that allows students to organize activities, connect with new people, and find community while studying abroad. Let's welcome Alec, a current senior in the SFS and the founder of Pavilion, up to the stage to talk a little bit more about Pavilion.
Hi everyone. So my startup's called Pavilion. So this is a little bit about me and my co-founder, Emerson. So Emerson is a full stack developer. He does front-end and back-end development. He also has experience in product and design. He served as chief technology officer to 2 venture-backed successful startups. Emerson and I, we met through an entrepreneur in residence. I kind of got lucky, and we've been working together ever since. A little bit about me. So I'm a 4th year senior in the School of Foreign Service majoring in international politics. I've always been interested in international affairs, understanding other countries. I've loved traveling, and I had the privilege of most recently studying abroad in Sydney, Australia. For those of you students in the audience who haven't yet studied abroad, highly recommend it. It's an amazing experience. Some of the most transformative experiences of my life happened in Sydney, Australia, and I absolutely loved it. When I got back from studying abroad, I talked to some friends, including my friend Jimmy, who said to me, he said, I wish there was some way I can meet a roommate for when I go study abroad in Copenhagen. And I was like, that's a great point. I know I had kind of trouble meeting a whole lot of people in Sydney, Australia, people who were in the same boat as me, other Americans. And so I thought there could be a real idea. There. So my team at Georgetown Ventures and I, we conducted over 50 sort of interviews with kids who were planning on studying abroad and kids who were already abroad. And we realized that kids don't want connections. They don't want to meet other people. They don't need friends. They don't want to find roommates because they largely have a group of friends that they're studying abroad together with. What they want is information. So upon further research, we gathered that students peer-to-peer send spreadsheets like this. These spreadsheets contain specific information regarding bars to go to, different nightlife options, and different city-specific recommendations according to your peers. And so I thought, there has to be a way of making this a 10x experience. There has to be a way of really improving this, consolidating this information and standardizing it so that it's democratized and more transparent. So you don't have to know people to gain access to this information. We also conducted a lot of research regarding existing options out there for kids who don't necessarily have access to spreadsheets like that. So current solutions, they include TripAdvisor, they include Reddit, they include short-form video. But these solutions, they don't do it justice. They aren't sufficient because they're not according to your peers, they're not very specific, and in TripAdvisor's case, it looks like it was designed in 2008. So these solutions just don't really fit the needs of students who are abroad right now, and it further kind of shaped my conviction that there really is a better solution out there that kids really need. So what we realized is that students abroad, they seek transparent access to local information. What kind of information? This information has to be up to date, and it has to be specific, and it has to be peer vetted. This is the sort of information that kids want, and this is the sort of information that kids should have access to. And so through my experience with my team at Georgetown Ventures, we gathered spreadsheets and information and city-specific in this sort of information from 6 continents, 30 countries, and over 50 cities. And we sent around a flyer trying to gauge interest on if we have a real idea here. So we ended up garnering over 120 signups, and so we realized this is a real solution that people actually want. And by the way, this is just at Georgetown. So it was really validated, and we were really excited about that. And so also, alongside my team at Hoy Developers, we were able to develop an application that's phone-based and that's easily accessible by students. And so this application, I'm proud to announce, will be completed in less than a month, and then we'll go on to try to get regulatory approval and approval by the App Store. But I realized there has to be a way that we can make money on this. There has to be a business plan here so that's sustainable. And so what I realized is that we can sell this to international student organizations. These organizations include study abroad program providers such as DIS, CIEE, AIFS Abroad, but also include programs like Birthright Israel. They also include programs like Erasmus. So all international student organizations. And this was really validated during a customer interview that I had with WorldStrides. They told me that the existing software solutions that they use are crappy, they're outdated, and they hate using it. They really want a program, an application that has up-to-date information like Pavilion that they'd be willing to spend up to $2,000 a month for. And so, alongside my co-founder and chief technology officer, Emerson, we decided that Pavilion will be the first study abroad and travel program management platform out there for students' use and out there to democratize and make this information more transparent. So our ask is that we're looking for investors to accelerate our vision and really help us turn this MVP into something real. So thank you so much.
All right, amazing job, Alec. Luckily for you, Pavilion is practically guaranteed to succeed since literally half of GV will be using your product abroad next semester. Personally, I'm going to Copenhagen, and I know I can't wait to use Pavilion to find the best things to do, restaurants, cafes, things like that. And now that's the end of our Launchpad cohort. So we're going to be taking a little break from pitches to hear from our featured guest speaker, Eric Wu, the founder of Gainful and Sobu Foods. Eric graduated from Georgetown School of Foreign Service in 2017 with a degree in Science, Technology, and International Affairs, aka STIA, and then went full-time with his co-founder on Gainful, a personalized sports nutrition company that went on to raise over $20 million and participate in Y Combinator's 2018 Winter Batch. During his time at Gainful, Eric was also recognized by Forbes 30 Under 30 list in the food and drink category. Just recently, Eric started another company called Sobu Foods, which is now his primary project after he transitioned to an advisory role on the board of directors at Gainful. We are pleased to host Eric for a fireside chat with one of our very own members, Director of Programming Margot Barrett, who will moderate the conversation. Please join me in welcoming both of them up to talk about Eric's experience at Gainful and Sobu Foods.
Thank you so much for being with us here today, Eric. I mean, you came all the way from California, and we really appreciate it. We have lots of questions for you. So
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, could you talk a little bit about your journey at Georgetown and maybe some early entrepreneurial aspirations that you had while you were on campus?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's fun to be back. It's fun to be back in the MSB. I was as you mentioned, I was a STIA major and then SFS, so the only times that I would venture into this building were to pitch all of my harebrained ideas to a bunch of folks just like you, and it was a really good first learning in how to pitch a business, especially back then. These were not super well fleshed out business ideas that I had, so it was more of a pitch practice than anything. But I think early on in my Georgetown career, I was pretty clear-eyed about the fact that I was not going to get a quote-unquote normal job. I think that ship sailed pretty quickly for me, so I pretty quickly began doing internships out in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, working at early-stage startups. And I think after the bug bit me, it just became pretty obvious that I wasn't going to go down the typical kind of consulting or banking route. And I began just working on these little side projects. And the side project that ended up taking on a life of its own was Gainful. So I started that from my basement on Prospect Street, just mixing up random blends of supplements and protein powders, which is not how most people get their startup started, but it worked for me, and one thing led to another, and it was my full-time job and kind of the crowning achievement of my career so far.
So how did you come up with the idea to start Gainful?
Gainful was born out of the fact that me and my co-founder at Gainful, he's not a Georgetown alum, so he went to Cal out in Berkeley, but we were high school friends. So we had always played soccer together. We'd grown up playing a ton of soccer, and we had friends, teammates who, they'd go work out or they had practice, and then they would go home and slug just, this disgusting protein shake, right? Like it felt like nobody knew what they were drinking. It felt like nobody knew what they were putting in their bodies. They were just doing it because there was like a bodybuilder on the front of the jug, and they wanted to be a real athlete like Cristiano Ronaldo. But for me, as a guy who was not part of that, world of sports nutrition, it was just really overwhelming. And I remember there's a specific moment where I walked down to, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a GNC on Wisconsin Ave. And it's just floor-to-ceiling tubs of protein powder with names like Muscle Farm, and there's literally a pre-workout called Total War. And I'm looking at these products like, who in their right mind is actually putting this in their mouth? Like, who's eating this stuff? This is crazy. So that was the initial spark where me and Jahan, my co-founder, were thinking like, why is there not something that's just a little bit more gender neutral, a little more down to earth? It's not crazy over the top branding. And why isn't there something that's made for like different body types and different exercise regimens and different nutritional needs? So we just spun up this like little questionnaire. It wasn't even engineered, so you don't necessarily need like a founding engineer on your team to validate an idea. We just had this little I think it was a Google form or something like that, and we just had people fill out information about themselves. After which I went down into my basement that was very much not FDA regulated. I think actually one of my senior year roommates is here in the audience, and he can attest to the fact that this was not approved by the FDA, but we were creating these blends for my friends, and it was just one way to get started. But like I said, one thing led to another, and eventually, we kind of kept putting one foot in front of the other and growing slightly larger and doing things in slightly less scrappy and sketchy ways until now it's a 25-person company in New York with millions of dollars in revenue, and you can buy Gainful products in every single Target store nationwide as well.
It's crazy all that you were able to accomplish from the basement of your dorm without the FDA being involved.
Thankfully, we moved the company out of the basement at 3304 Prospect pretty quickly.
Did you have any experience technically like making a custom protein powder or anything?
I had no background in nutrition science. I had no background in engineering. I was just somebody who, when you didn't have something in your life that you wanted, would just go out and try to figure it out yourself. And I think honestly, like for a lot of Georgetown folks, I feel like there's a lot of people here whose asks have to do with like finding a CTO or finding a founding engineer or finding an engineering team. And one thing that I learned, and also you'll see this with actually a lot of like successful Georgetown businesses, a lot of them are fairly low tech, honestly. And if you're a consumer products business, which has been my entire training and my entire background, your biggest problems aren't actually getting a website off the ground or figuring out your tech stack or building some kind of game-changing software-based solution. Your problems are really like finding the right manufacturer and getting a brand and making sure your operations are running properly and financing the business. And those are things that maybe Georgetown doesn't necessarily teach you directly, but it also doesn't mean that you have to have an undergrad degree in computer science to figure out.
Do you have any advice for our founders on how they can kind of overcome those technical barriers that they're currently facing?
Well, you can do my route, which was for my first business, which required a little bit of tech. Get your best buddy from high school to code you a website and promise him that you'll give him $50 and then eventually he'll be your co-founder and that's what he does for the next 6 years. That's a good route. Another route is you could just do what I'm doing with now my second business, Sobo. We sell frozen dumplings. No software required, surprisingly. You just have to make some dumplings and sell them to some grocery stores. We do have a website, but it's not required. So there are a lot of ways to begin a business that don't actually require you to build a website. There's another amazing Georgetown alum. His name's Phil Wong. He has a company that was originally called Misfit Foods, and then it became known as Phil's Finest, and they make hamburgers and sausages that are 50% veggies and 50% meat with less carbon footprint and just as delicious with really amazing flavors. But again, like you need a sausage making machine for that business. You don't need an engineer.
So either with Sobo Foods or with Gainful, were there any moments where you felt your idea that you maybe needed to like shift or pivot?
Early days of Gainful, I mean, with any business, you're going to end up doing a lot of shifting and pivoting. Early days of Gainful, I think one of the biggest learnings for us was we came out of the gates and we were doing kind of like a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, like mimicking other really cool consumer brands that are out there. So when we started a business, there was another personalized vitamins business called Care Of. There was a personalized hair care business called Function of Beauty, personalized skincare business called Curology, and these all had like primarily female target demographics. And so we thought to ourselves like, okay, well we're just gonna go and make our like poppy branding and try to look like these folks. And what we ended up realizing is that actually for our brand, what made the most sense was like a very gender neutral brand approach. So one, I guess, like takeaway that you can have from that experience of building the early days of Gainful is you really just got to get a product out in front of people. Like I think, especially for first-time entrepreneurs, there feels like there's a lot of weight to have the perfect thing out in the world before you're ready to tell people about it, before you're ready to charge people for it. And my advice would be, don't worry about that. Like, just do it the scrappiest way you possibly can, and try to get someone to pay anything for it. Even if it's like $5, try to get someone to pay something to you for the product that demonstrates that it actually has a value for them. And if that person pays you, then you figured out what your initial target is, what your initial customer is. And if you can get that person to tell 10 of their friends, amazing. Because the more you can kind of feel out who your like core tribe is in the early days, the better sense you'll be able to get of how you need to change the product, how you need to change the business or the business model in order to find more people just like that. So it's in the early days, it's not about trying to necessarily figure out like, how is this going to be $1 billion company? Where are my first million customers going to come from? You're better off just going to your 10 closest friends and figuring out which one of them is going to be your true customer.
Thank you. That's a great answer. So were there any points with Gainful that you were able to take a step back and be like, wow, we actually made it?
I don't think we're out of the woods yet. There's still a lot to go. You know, we're still a startup, and you know, I think the part about Gainful that people who are on the team love about it is that we're kind of never going to lose that scrappy energy that me and Jahan imbued in the company. The points where we're able to look back and be very proud of ourselves, I think one of the most gratifying things for me in being an entrepreneur has always been bringing on amazing team members. It's definitely a surreal experience to be, you know, when we were making our first, you know, key leadership hires, I was probably 23, 24 years old, and hiring people who in any other walk of life, in any other job, would have been your boss's boss or, you know, a mentor of yours. That's really gratifying because you essentially, if you have the means to do it, you get to select the people who you want to build your career around, who you would have wanted to learn everything from, and they get to be your confidant, your inner circle, your leadership team. And that's an experience that I feel like, looking back, has been one of the most gratifying experiences of building startups.
That's great. Are there any specific qualities that you look for in people that you're hiring for your leadership team or for employees in general?
EQ, right? Being able to work nicely with other people is, I think, maybe the most important thing of any leader in the business, because once you get to, and I'm not saying, you know, Gainful's very late stage, we're still pretty much an early stage company, but once you get to a point where there's, you know, more than a dozen people in your organization, so much of the day-to-day actually becomes about like getting the most out of people and figuring out what motivates people to do their best work. and less so really about like getting your hands super dirty in the day-to-day. That said, you should never get into a startup if you don't get excited about getting your hands dirty and doing real work every single day. But definitely hiring people for their ability to motivate and lead other people is how you kind of scale an organization versus just scaling a product.
Amazing. So to address your hoodie, so what motivated you to launch Sobo Foods and to take an advisory role at Gainful?
Yeah, it's. I think it's somewhat unconventional, right? To do what I've done. I feel like you probably hear a lot of stories about founders who leave their businesses a little bit more unhappily than I've left Gainful. So for everyone's knowledge, I'm on the board of Gainful, and I'm an advisor to the company, and obviously my best friend is still running the business. So I'm still furiously texting him over here from my seat as we're trying to figure out some stuff for Gainful right before I came on stage here. But Gainful for me was the most beautiful, perfect first job I could have ever asked for, right? Like to have the opportunity to grow a business to, dozens of millions of dollars in revenue. I can't say the exact number, and many, many points of distribution and millions of customers and 25 team members. It's a blessing, right? Like I feel very, very lucky to have had that opportunity. But what I actually was studying as an undergrad and what I was writing my senior thesis on when I was mixing up protein powder in my basement on Prospect Street was the future of food. So I don't know if he's here tonight, but I had an amazing professor at Georgetown, Professor Mark Giordano, and I had a couple classes with him about basically looking at what the impact of the food you eat every day has on the environment and why the choices that we make at a consumer level about what we eat 3 times a day actually means more than the impact of driving your car or recycling. It's really like the food that has the biggest impact on your climate footprint. And so I was a big nerd about that pretty early on. I wrote my senior thesis on Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat and the future of food sustainability at the time that I was starting Gainful. So I kind of like fell backward into this amazing opportunity with Gainful. It was the perfect time to start that sort of business. But I always knew that I wanted to get back a little bit closer to my roots, which are food and food sustainability. And so that's where this incredibly embarrassing photo that Georgetown Ventures chose of me holding 2 squash up in the air is all about. My new venture is very much around food and showing people that you can have amazing, delicious, nutritious food that just also happens to be better for people from a health perspective and better for the planet from an environmental perspective. So tough decision for me to step back from Gainful, but I'm really thankful to our investors and our team members to have been so understanding and to have helped build a business that's doing so well that, when even the founder leaves, it's not like the end of the world. It's a self-sustaining business at this point. And I'm blessed to be able to work on an entirely new venture, which is something that's very near and dear to my heart and also pretty personal too.
It's amazing that you're doing this with Sobo Foods. I think it's a really cool project, and we need more companies out there that are being environmentally sustainable. So since you have such a close relationship to the idea of Sobo Foods, how has that impacted your perception as a founder in the early stages of creating a company? Is it any different than when you first started Gainful?
Definitely. I think a lot of things are a lot easier the second time around. And a lot of the sort of silly things that we would wring our hands about for weeks at a time when we were first starting Gainful are now snap decisions for us at Sobo, which is amazing, right? And it also helps to kind of have a bit of a track record, right? So when you're raising money from VCs, I think one of the biggest risk factors for them is that this person has not done it before. They don't know what they're doing, right? And thankfully for us, that's been significantly de-risked, especially since the 2 businesses, while they are very different products, they're both broadly in the same industry of CPG, consumer packaged goods. So a lot of things have gotten a lot easier. I think certain things, just given the nature of the product for Sobo, which is a frozen dumpling, for those of you who don't know, super different from 2-year dry shelf-stable protein powder. And the kind of like muscle memory of building a brand and building a team and raising money and getting distribution, feels natural, it feels comfortable, it feels like something that I'm familiar with, but the fact that we're now dealing with a frozen dumpling that, you can't leave it out for 30 minutes unless it goes bad, it melts, it's a totally different challenge. So I'm working a lot with, like I mentioned before, I'm working a lot not with like engineering issues, but with operations, supply chain, manufacturing, and distribution issues, which I think, regardless of your background, technical or no, are things that bright Georgetown grads can figure out.
From an outside perspective, it seems very hard to break into the consumer packaged goods industry. How are you planning to go forward with Sobo Foods? What's next? How do you plan on capturing the market?
So I'll say two things. The first is to your point about breaking into CPG. I think any industry is hard to, with like the exception of maybe like aerospace engineering, which I could never imagine how I'd break into that, but most industries look very difficult to break into from the outside until you start talking to people who are on the inside, or you've gotten your first internship or your first job in the industry, and then you're realizing that like, I'm 7 years out of college now, and everyone's faking it. We're all just making it up as we go along. So if you feel like you're faking it right now, just keep doing that. Because at a certain point, you're going to walk into work and fake it just like you have done every other day, and everyone around you is going to think that you're the most confident person in the world and the most accomplished person in the world. So just whatever you're doing, you're going to feel some imposter syndrome, but don't worry, just keep doing it, especially if you're working on your own business. You just got to pretend like you've been there before. And the second part of your question was?
How are you planning on scaling your company? What's next for Sobo Foods? All the above.
So first business, Gainful, was mostly direct-to-consumer for the first 6 years, meaning we sold e-commerce, right? We had a website, we had this little quiz that you could take, and then we deliver it right to your doorstep. Frozen dumplings work a little less well when they're delivered directly to your doorstep like that. Dry ice is expensive, shipping is expensive, and it kind of like flies in the face of our sustainability mission to send you $20 worth of dumplings with $20 worth of dry ice and $20 worth of shipping and $20 worth of styrofoam. So we're not doing as much direct-to-consumer, although you can order us online. It's just quite expensive to order Sobo. Our route is really going to be retail. So natural retail, think like Whole Foods and Sprouts. We're in process with, you name it, grocery store, nice, natural, fancy grocery store. We're talking to them right now, and we're only distributed in about 50 little natural independent grocery stores in the Bay Area currently, which is where Sobo is based. But we're going to be launching in a big way in Southern California in July, and then hopefully you'll be able to find us in a bunch of nice grocery stores in DC and the East Coast shortly thereafter.
As someone from Southern California, I am excited.
Amazing. I'll let you know when we're in stores near you.
Amazing. So from your entrepreneurial journey so far, what was the best piece of advice that you've received, either from investors, mentors, faculty members at Georgetown?
I'm glad I get to finally tell this story, because I think it only works if I'm sitting in front of an entirely Georgetown audience. But the best advice I ever received, I was on the 4th floor of Lau, hating my life, middle of final season, trying to build Gainful, wondering why I was doing anything, Gainful or classes. And I emailed one of my bosses from one of my internships. And she has a law degree from Georgetown, so it kind of all comes full circle here. But I was interning at this company the summer previous. Total tangent, it was a baby tech company, which is hilarious for a 20-year-old guy to be working on at the time. And I was doing all this research for Gainful. I think I was gearing up for a pitch competition similar to this one. And I had found another company, and they were also advertising, personalized supplement blends, right? And at that point, I was like, oh, well, this has been fun. I'm going to throw in the towel. Someone else is doing this, and they clearly already have the products in place, and they have a website, and they probably have some funding. It looks like they're on Amazon. Like, there goes my dream. I'm screwed. So I emailed my mentor, and I was like, hey, that really cool business I was pitching you on that I told you about that I was really excited to work on. Well, looks like somebody already did it, so I guess that's it for Gainful, right? And her response to me was, why do you care? Like, does it matter that somebody else is doing this? There's really nothing between a business that doesn't exist yet and a business that is very successful, except for execution. And a lot of execution just comes down to how much you want it, how much you're willing to put in the blood, sweat, and tears and work on this thing every day and potentially not pay yourself very much to work on it for quite some time in order to get that dream over the line. And I'm proud to say, well, not that I wish bad upon this other company, but you all haven't heard of it, and you've heard of Gainful now, and we're in all the stores, and you can buy us online. And I think if you ever think about personalized sports nutrition, if you ever think about performance nutrition, you probably think about Gainful first. And this other founder, much more money, much more resource, much more experience, but ultimately what mattered was the execution, and thankfully we were able to stick it out for so long.
That's really an amazing story. I know that I have not had any moments like that on Lao 4. Mine are a lot more sad than that. So we need to move on to our questions from the audience, because I know they have a lot of questions for you, but I have one last question while I get to sit here with you, and that would be, what was your favorite Georgetown memory? What do you look back on when you walk on campus?
I mean, I imagine this is probably a trite memory, but for those of you who are graduating soon, the day before, morning or evening before graduation, everyone goes out and parties and stays up all night, and then everyone ends up on at the monuments. Everyone walks down there, and you basically get to watch the sunrise together. And that was a very, very poignant moment for me. I think it's surely probably many other people's favorite moment as well. But it was really heartwarming to be next to so many friends that you had made over the course of the last 4 years, and kind of feel like you're collectively taking the step into the void together as well. And I'm thankful to say today that a lot of the people that were with me on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial that early morning, except for one guy who didn't make it out, they're still all my best friends, and we see each other all the time. So cherish these memories, and if you want a more PG version, I also had a great time pitching all these crazy businesses here in the MSB as well.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with me today. And now
Thank
we're
you.
going to go over to our questions from the audience. So if anyone has any questions, they can line up with Joey or raise their hand, and Joey can bring the mic to you. And we can go from there.
Hi, Eric. Great talk. I was wondering that I think throughout both Gainful and Sobo, you emphasize the value of branding around a startup. How would you go about creating that brand for your startup, especially if you and your co-founder, for example, have no design skills or artistic skills whatsoever? Me, basically.
I mean, you should have seen the first bags of Gainful that we sent out. It was a brown craft paper bag with a sticker that I'd printed off of Sticker Mule with the logo that I'd made on Canva. So you got to start somewhere. And if you don't have money, honestly, hiring an amazing designer to do a brand costs money. There are new brands that are launched all the time that people pay $500,000 just to get the bare bones in place. So in lieu of having that, what you need to have is a freaking amazing product, right? Just basically go to the ends of the earth for your early customers and show them that your brand is not actually about a logo. It's not actually about a beautiful website. It's not about an amazing color scheme or brand book. It's actually about how you make people feel, what the product does for them, why it's different than all the other things on the market. So I guess the headline here is a brand doesn't have to be all the expensive stuff. Design is how a brand looks, but a brand really is how it makes people feel. And that is something that in the early days, you as a founder can just will into existence. And then you can worry about having the fancy, expensive, well-designed brand later on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for such an amazing talk. My name is Julia, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your transition after you graduated from Georgetown into getting started on your career as an entrepreneur, given that, as you said, your life post-college was a little bit outside the traditional Georgetown mold, and kind of how you navigated that uncertainty.
Yeah, so I think a lot of folks, a lot of really Silicon Valley type entrepreneurs, right? I think there's this kind of, there's this emphasis on being ready to reject all the traditional ways of going about things, right? You got to drop out of school if you're really committed to your startup, or you got to immediately go do Y Combinator right out of undergrad if you really want to be a successful startup, right? And me and Jahan, we really ascribed to those things, and we kind of drank the Kool-Aid initially. But there are plenty of successful entrepreneurs who do the conventional route and figure out that maybe it's not for them, or they learn really important skills, right? The average age of a successful entrepreneur is quite a bit older than me. And I'm not saying I'm a successful entrepreneur yet. I'm just saying that when I'm in my 40s and I'm starting my hopefully 4th or 5th venture, I think it's going to be way more successful than Gainful and Sobo put together. So there's really nothing wrong with going and doing the quote-unquote conventional route for a few years. But if you really want to be a masochist about it and you can't picture yourself doing anything but working on this, what other people might say is a silly little startup idea directly from the day after you graduate, then it's a pretty good reason to do what your heart's telling you to do. We got into the only place that gave us money was this startup accelerator program in Cincinnati, and they gave us $50,000, and we said, all right, screw it, we're going to go there, we're going to move to Cincinnati, we're going to try this crazy startup thing for a couple of months. We didn't pay ourselves anything. I slept on the floor. We ate mostly leftovers from like the event space that we were working out of, and it was best. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But if that's not what excites you, then like you don't have to, because that's a little bit crazy. One thing led to another though, and at the end of that program, we got into Y Combinator. Y Combinator was a bigger check size, and then after demo day for YC, it was off to the races. So I think, you know, it wasn't necessarily like predetermined, but the way that we went about it, I wouldn't change a thing. And for many other people, there are other ways to go about it for which they wouldn't change a thing either, but it didn't involve them moving to Cincinnati and sleeping on the floor. So there are many ways to go about it.
Hi, I'm Katie. Thank you also for being here. And my question's actually really similar to Julia's. How did you navigate the pressure surrounding jumping into the consulting world or banking, especially with the business environment at Georgetown, as well as just nationally? How did you follow your dreams and continue with that inspiration, especially with the thought of money on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'll say definitely come from a position of huge privilege to have graduated with very minimal student loans and had a stable family environment where if everything kind of went belly up, I could just go back to my mom's place and hang out for a few months and figure out what a quote-unquote real job would be from there. And not everybody has that luxury, so do whatever your situation requires of you. Again, I'm not knocking anybody who, if you are in the running for an amazing consulting or banking gig, go for it. But also just know that it's very much the bubble that we're coming from as Georgetown students. We have amazing opportunities ahead of us because we're Georgetown students, and those big firms from New York come and recruit down here. But it's not the end of the world if you don't do that. It's not the end of the world if you, like me, decide that that sounds like hell on earth and you'd rather never do that, and you just let all the deadlines pass, and then it's senior year and you start mixing up protein powder in your basement. Like, probably gonna work out for you anyways. So I would just not stress out about it as much as I think there's a culture here to stress out about.
And I think this is going to be our last question from the audience.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for coming. I was just wondering how you ensure the nutritional integrity, I guess, of your products, especially in the beginning with Gainful when, as you said, you didn't have a lot of background in food science, so sort of how you made sure that it was like the healthiest, best possible product out there.
Well, in the beginning, it was me ordering things off of bulksupplements.com and mixing them up in a Tupperware container. So I can't say it was incredibly insured then, but my customers were also my roommates, who I think were pretty used to living on a budget and eating weird things that I was cooking them anyways. Yeah, I mean, in the early days, one of the first hires that we made was really important to us, was a registered dietitian. So the first employee that we ever hired for Gainful, and I'm really proud to say he's actually still at Gainful. His name is Matt Mazzino. He's still on the website. He's a registered dietitian. He was also a professional bodybuilder and weightlifter, so he really knew his way around the supplements, and he helped us create our initial formulations as well as our algorithms that determine the types of blends that different people would get based on their responses in the quiz. And now, obviously, we've since graduated, right? We have a team of registered dietitians. We have a head of innovation who has a background in food science. We have third-party manufacturers that have their own food scientists. We have regulatory consultants. But in the early days, I think the first thing we had was just a good insurance plan, and then we went from there.
Can we get a huge round of applause for Eric?
Thanks so much.
All right, can we get one more round of applause for Eric and Margot? That was so inspiring. I think that Gainful and Sobu are such cool companies, and as a broke college student who also happens to be vegan, I am super excited for Sobu to end up in DC and for that to be in my mini fridge in my dorm, hopefully in the next 2 years. All right, so now we're going to be moving on to our Venture Accelerator pitches. First off, we have Second Bloom. Second Bloom is a platform working to create an angel network with a unique focus on historically overlooked older entrepreneurs in their second bloom. Please join me in welcoming co-founder and recent MBA graduate Sophia on behalf of her co-founder Jacob to the stage to tell us a little bit more about Second Bloom. Do you want a microphone?
Hey everyone, my name is Sophia Vergara. I'm one of the co-founders of Second Bloom. Jacob sadly could not be here, he's in New York. So Second Bloom's an angel network focused on supporting founders with 20 plus years of experience. We're really interested in supporting founders that are building businesses later on in their careers. I'm 29 years old. You're probably wondering why on earth are you interested in doing this? But the story is actually personal. So my dad is what we're considering a second bloomer. He worked 25 plus years at the World Bank, was able to retire in his early 50s, realized very quickly he was not ready to stop working and wanted to start a company of his own in climate tech, which is the area he had worked in. But I was able to see firsthand the challenges that he faced as someone coming from a more corporate environment and pivoting to the entrepreneurship world. It was challenging to fundraise initially, to figure out what that landscape looked like, difficult to hire technical talent, etc. But basically that transition was challenging, and him and many other friends were kind of in similar situations, struggling as more experienced or older entrepreneurs in their career. So I was really interested in looking into this a little bit more, and Eric actually just touched on this earlier, but when I dug into it, I found that founders over 40, so founders, the most successful founders, average age is 45. There was an interesting study out of MIT that found that founders over 50 are almost 2 times more likely to be successful than their 30-year-old counterparts, so kind of going against this idea that like of the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, or all these younger founders that might drop out of school. However, although there's data showing that they're more successful, only 27% of venture capital dollars are going towards founders over 40. So although they're supposed to be more experienced and higher likelihoods of success, the funding is just not going that direction. So we think now more than ever is the best time to be building Second Bloom for 2 main reasons. One, that the population is getting older, people are living longer and looking to stay active later on in their careers, which we think will lead to increased entrepreneurship in one's career. And then obviously this funding disconnect, that the money is just not flowing necessarily to these experienced founders. So I wanted to highlight just a couple examples of second bloomers that we might know about in our day-to-day. The founder of Zoom and Lynda.com both started their businesses over the age of 40, and then all the logos on the right side are all companies also started by second bloomers that had long careers and then started their companies over 40. So we are primarily an angel network, which means that we're connecting angel investors to these startup founders with 20 plus years of experience, so around 40 plus years old. We'll be connecting those investors, which right now it's about 15 or so members in our network, with capital. And then we're also offering both advisory and technical support. The reason that we added these 2 other offerings is we spoke to almost 100 founders throughout the last couple of months, and capital was the biggest need that was there, but then there was definitely a lot of, there was a need for support for individuals across different industries. So we have 15 advisors right now across fintech, CPG, and different other industries that we plan on connecting with our network. And then technical support was the other offering. That was a big ask, so getting connected to technical talent is super important for these founders. So we launched back in December, so we've been active or operating for a couple months now. We had, with very little marketing, it was just a LinkedIn post, almost 100 companies apply for funding within the last couple of months. In total, there's about $80 million being asked across from all these companies for funding. The average age of the companies that we've received interest from has been 48. Here's a couple other stats, but we're actively in diligence with 2 companies right now and have some intro calls with some other companies this week. So we're really looking to make an investment sometime soon, but have been super excited with the progress and reception that we've gotten so far. So as I mentioned, Jacob's my co-founder. We both met here during the MBA at Georgetown. We graduated last year. We both come from the startup and venture ecosystem. We've been super lucky to build out our network of advisors, so a lot of them who are Georgetown EIRs, and they've been super helpful as we've built out Second Bloom, so I just want to give them a quick shout out. And then want to shout out our GV team, which did amazing work this semester. We had a very ugly website, which now looks much better thanks to GV. We did a huge push to grow the Angel Network and reach out to more companies, and then are also planning on pushing out some new content and media, which was also part of the GV's team's work. But in terms of how you can help, we are still kind of early as we're building out the network, but we'd love introductions to investors. If you or other people are interested in investing in these second bloomers, please let us know. And then also, if you're a second bloomer or looking to start something or know people that are starting businesses later in their career, please come talk to me after today or after the talk. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Sophia. Probably none of you will be surprised to learn that when I was telling my mom about all the startups that GV was working with this semester, Second Bloom was by far her favorite. She was like, oh my gosh, I want to come up with my own startup so I can get involved in Second Bloom. So it's really, really cool that what you guys are doing. Moving on to another GV favorite is Shonda. Since its inception, Shonda has sought to streamline the process of creating podcasts in order to make podcasts easier and more accessible to everyone. Doomy, a second-year MBA student, just couldn't get enough of GV and decided to come back after participating in Launchpad's cohort last spring. Please join me in welcoming our beloved GV returning founder, Doomy, to tell us how Shonda is going to revolutionize the podcast industry.
Cool, how are we feeling? Good? Good? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. My name is Doomy. As you might know, I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Shonda Studio, and it's a solution that helps make podcasting easy. But before I get started, by a show of hands, how many of you, when you grew up, had access to local television stations with many channels? Cool. That's a blessing. So you might hear that I have an accent. So for those of you who don't know me, I come from Zimbabwe. Beautiful place, beautiful people. But unfortunately, for 4 decades, it endured a military dictatorship. And that dictatorship stifled freedom of expression in the media, which meant that when I grew up with access to one television channel. So you guys might have had, I don't know, like Friends or How I Met Your Mother, these various shows. I didn't have the local version of that. I just had one television channel controlled by the government, which was really painful. And the older I grew, I had this deep thirst for local stories. I mean, who are my people? What do they go through? And why don't I see that represented in content anyway? So, as podcasts became more of a thing and a truly decentralized form of media, I started my own. It was called Zimbabwean Voices. We interviewed 32 change makers in our community, and it was super, super fulfilling. We grew to about 200 monthly listeners, and even during the pandemic, we did like a small fundraiser with our community, and we sent 10 kids to school with this beautiful thing that I had built. But I found it incredibly costly to make and painful to post-produce. So it sparked my interest to do some research. And I discovered that 75% of people that started a podcast didn't get past 4 episodes, making me dig a little bit deeper into the statistic. So I did Launchpad, as we mentioned earlier. Here's our initial team that we had. And we did 100 customer discovery interviews to really try and dig into the problem, to figure out what exactly is that was going on, that was troubling. And we discovered this. So for a person like me who had a story to tell to connect with an audience, I just didn't know what to do when I used tools like that. And I'll try iMovie and I'll try various other tools. And honestly, they were just way too complex for a beginner. And I found out that editing was also really much of a pain for other people as well. So an hour-long recording would take around 4 to 6 hours to edit for the average person, which is incredibly long. It's expensive to outsource, and it's incredibly slow to get your content back, which makes it incredibly inefficient. So we ran some experiments. We then said, okay, imagine like a magic wand, there was this perfect solution. Then we created a Wix website, and we ran ads against that website to figure out who would then sign up. We tested different websites. Then eventually people started signing up to our platform. We said, okay, there's friction here, which we understand. And off the back of that insight, we did more digging, and then we built a prototype. And that prototype would take Zoom transcription data, and then we'll run it through our platform, and try to envision audio as text rather than just your typical wave format. It wasn't perfect, it was pretty scrappy, but we learned a ton about what worked versus what didn't. And off the back of that learning, we said, what could we use that's simple, streamlined, and intuitive? And this is what we built. But before I show it to you, I want to ask you all a question. How many of you have used like the Voice Memos app on your iPhone? Cool. Or Zoom as well? I assume you've all used Zoom before. Very cool. So essentially, a podcast is really as easy to use with the Voice Memos app. And to bring this demo to life, I did a demo with Andrew a couple of days ago, and I'm going to run the demo today. So this is how MVP looks. A person comes to our product, they can learn about us, how it works, podcasting for beginners, etc. They can check the pricing, $0 for limited access, $11.99 for unlimited access. No credit card needed. Then they airdrop the voice memo to Shanda and upload it. And then what's about to play is the live demo that I did with Andrew a few days ago. So step one, we've uploaded the audio. Now we're going to play it. Why is the audio down? Oh boy.
Demo day.
There you go. Yeah.
I would say just giving a chance for all the founders to showcase all the hard work they've put in. That's probably my favorite thing. And then also just seeing the community come together that are interested in Georgetown entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Andrew, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a Krispy Kreme donut and a bagel.
Awesome.
So I love Andrew, but I don't really care what he had for breakfast this morning. So I'm cutting out that text just like a Word document, so it's simple and intuitive, and I'm cutting out that clutter from the content. That's step one. Step two, I want to give the podcast its own branded intro and outro, so I use an intro. Okay. To make it epic and energizing, right? Okay, cool. Cool. And then I do the same for the outro. They gave it that epic outro so that people can have this branded content feel about Andrew's podcast. Epic. So for step three, what we do is we then auto-generate a manual task of copywriting about what the content was. So we've auto-generated the title of Andrew's favorites, Demo Day Adventures, or the description and the title, and we automate that off the discussion. Then we upload a little thumbnail image from the show. Then we load the nice little, then yay, confetti plays. And then we can then, it's a nice celebrate. Now we've made the finished product, which is super exciting.
Andrew, what is your favorite thing about Georgetown Ventures and Demo Day?
I would say just giving a chance for all the founders to showcase all the hard work they've put in. That's probably my favorite thing. And then also just seeing the community come together that are interested in Georgetown entrepreneurship.
Cool. So we've come up the breakfast part of the content, right? There are other things that we need to improve, like how do we enhance the audio sound? In the future, we'll be able to publish straight to Spotify, etc. But, you know, we've made some good progress off our MVP, which is super exciting. If I click next. So when we built our MVP, we said, okay, what is our target audience? We know it's podcasting for beginners, but who's the most responsive consumer for this kind of product? So our hypothesis was for B2B, we can either do VCs or live coaches. And from a B2C perspective, we can focus on Georgetown students and see who signs up. So we scraped the internet for 200 leads of these demographic. Then here we found that Georgetown students use podcasts for 4 reasons. Number 1, for assignments. Number 2, for clubs. Number 3, for publications. Number 4, for personal use. Then you can see a picture of me there doing a live demo in Professor Burke's microeconomics class to get people who had to do podcasts for their final exam. And that was me pitching it. And we were pretty scrappy. Got Aaron and Sebastian who were really putting up flyers across campus on water coolers, etc. And then also we put, flyer of ourselves in the Georgetown Entrepreneurship newsletter to get awareness of our product on a B2C perspective. And this was attraction. It was pretty interesting to find that 150 users signed up, which is very exciting, and we've had 48 people that are using it right now, And I check every morning, and this number keeps going up. What's interesting is that most of these people are students, which was against what I thought in the beginning. I thought it would be more B2B, but B2C have been kind of the most responsible people, which has been interesting. But that was from when we launched our beta. Today is our official launch, which is super exciting. Yeah, you can clap. Thank you. Thank you. So it's been a lot of hard work, and super excited to release it to the world today. So it's a $14 billion market, which is the podcasting landscape. But as opposed to looking at this big pie, we said, how can we niche it down to a small target audience? So our aim is to focus on one target audience and a market niche, own that before scaling up to the rest of the market. Currently, right now, there are about 300,000 active podcasts that are published every year. But when we spoke to students, we realized, damn, a lot of podcasts are being published, but not all. There are many more being produced. So we think the student market becomes quite interesting, but there are open questions around willingness to pay, etc., which we have to solve for. But what we've found is that people are willing to use, and the question becomes, how can we then convert that user into a paying customer? So of course, I'm standing up here speaking to you all tonight, but I can't do it all alone. I'm not technical, and I had to bring my friend Paul, who's been a godsend. I went to undergrad with him, and he's also a Hoya and did his MBA here, but has this really great background in software engineering and product. And Paul and I have built a really great team with expertise in marketing, sales, and of course tech as well. I want you to all give a fantastic round of applause for everyone that's helped me from the GV audience. Yeah. They've been incredible in helping getting us traction. It's so good to see them here in the audience, smiling. So looking ahead, this is where we are. So we've launched today, which is very exciting. But once we launch, the most important thing that we need are insights and data off the back of what we've built. What can we improve? Who is most responsive to us as a consumer? And how can we improve what we've built going forward? And iterate off the back of that. Once we've learned that, I think a key thing for us will be to figure out, if you want to get to scale, what would be the right distribution channels for our product so we can get to scale cost effectively? And these are kind of the questions that we need to ask for ourselves. So our mission is to democratize this medium globally by making production easy, simple, and intuitive. I know what it's like to grow up with limited access to local stories, and I don't want anyone to go through that ever again. I think we've built something that can make it simple for anyone in the world to tell a story, publish it, and have it listened to across the world. But to do that, we need your help. Our ask is to help connect us to any early stage venture accelerators that you might know that can help us work on this full time after we graduate. We really believe that we have made something that is pretty special, simple right now, but I think its beauty is in its simplicity, and we think we can scale this, but we just need some help in the beginning to help iterate it. So if you know of anyone that can help connect us to some venture accelerators, that would be wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you.
So much, Doomy, for that. Absolutely crushed it. Can we give him one more round of applause? Congrats on launching today. That's so exciting. I know that if I had Shonda when I was in micro last semester, I definitely would have ended with an A instead of an A- after my podcast project. Next up, I might be ever so slightly biased because I worked on this project this semester, but it's probably my favorite out of all of the spring 2024 GV startups. Introducing Candela, an artisanal fashion brand that collaborates with traditional Salvadoran artists to create handmade, ready-to-wear clothing and accessories that celebrate and preserve El Salvador's dynamic artistic heritage and unique cultural identity. Andrea, a current senior in the joint MSB and SFS Business and Global Affairs degree program, and the founder of Candela, is truly one of the coolest, kindest, and most passionate people I've ever met, and it was such an honor to work with her this semester. Please join me in welcoming Andrea to the stage to tell us a little bit more about Candela.
Hi everyone, my name is Andrea. I am the founder of Candela. As Grace mentioned, I'm also a senior here at Georgetown, and I am Salvadoran. And why I tell you this is because before I start on this whole pitch, I want to take you back to my home country. El Salvador is the place where I grew up, is the place that taught me almost everything that I know, and it is the inspiration behind this project. Unfortunately, however, El Salvador, during the past couple of years, has lost investment in cultural heritage. There's not a lot of programs or governmental initiatives to promote cultural and artisanal craftsmanship. Because of this, I decided to launch Candela. And I want you to meet the artisans, or what I like to call our cultural guardians. And while these are not the Avengers, they're definitely helping keep our traditions alive. They come from a diverse amount of places all over our country, and each have mastered unique artisanal crafts. And what's most incredible about these artisans is that despite investments and funding into their practices, they continue to work on their artisanal crafts and rely on just local sales or tourism to sell their products. They lacked a platform that would allow them to showcase their products to the world. And that is what Candela became. Candela became a web with the purpose of connecting artisans under a same mission, promoting and preserving artisanal craft while also bringing the local to the global. And before I continue, I want to introduce you to one of our favorite artisans, Ronald. Ronald comes from a respected lineage of waist loom weavers. He's from a small town in El Salvador called Panchimalco, and his family and him have been practicing waist loom weaving for over 80 years. Ronald is a clear example of one of the artisans that we work with at Candela. And I want to introduce you to Ronald because I want to explain to all of you what we do and how our product creation process works. So the first step in our process is conducting research. We want to be educated on what artisanal crafts and what artisanal practices need the most investment so we can go to those towns and then work with artisans to participate in collaborative ideation, to then design one-of-a-kind capsule collections. In this case, because we were working with Ronald, who's an artisanal waist loom weaver, we collected the textiles that we were going to use to make our pieces, to then create them and launch our one-of-a-kind collections. And the most amazing thing about our process is that it's twofold and mutually beneficial. Candela gives our artisans financial stability, financial literacy tools, a platform to sell their products, not only in El Salvador, but internationally, opportunity creation, and also skills training, while they help us promote artisanal practices, expand our impact and reach, and share with us their artisanal expertise so that we can create one-of-a-kind artisanal fashion pieces. And that's what Candela has become. We take the traditional fashion and blend that with the elevated ready-to-wear concept to create one-of-a-kind artisanal products. Candela is that. We're the bridge between artisanal fashion and elevated ready-to-wear fashion. But we're more than just that. We're purpose-wear. Candela is not your typical fashion brand. We're purpose-driven and impact-focused. And that's showcased on the impact we've had thus far in the communities that we work with. We formed a network of over 10 artisans across 6 towns in El Salvador, each specializing in unique crafts. We formed partnerships with NGOs and women's shelters. We provided training to 3 women running from violent situations in our country. We've hosted 5 educational events, and we've created our first product using 100% recycled and reused materials. Not only that, but our impact is reflected on our revenue. We currently sell on just 2 selling platforms, Instagram and pop-ups and farmers markets, and we've been able to make $20,000 in revenue, all from handmade products made in El Salvador. And this is what we sell. We sell a variety of artisanal products, hats, bracelets, purses, and even one in our crowd, which is going to be modeled to you now. Ooh. I think that, combined with our product margins, is what's really setting us up for success. Candela is a brand that, yes, was born in El Salvador, but has the potential to become so much more. Again, I go back to our mission of connecting the local to the global. We have the tools, the team, and the expertise to be able to duplicate and scale this business model abroad. And with that comes our growth timeline. How are we going to do this? Well, this semester I had the amazing opportunity to work with GV, and so far we've worked on conducting market research, cultivating impact partnerships, creating promotional assets, and currently we're working on implementing operational efficiencies so that we can expand our impact abroad. With that would come the design and launch of our e-commerce platform, expanding our target market abroad, and also growing our production capabilities, which means that we would scale and bring our business models to different countries around the world. And what that would mean that would translate into this. Our current sales reach, which is what you see on the screen, would become the map on the, well, I don't know if it's your guys' right or left, but on the other side. And that is our goal, growing not only our sales, but also our production. We believe our company has the capability to scale and grow because we have a scalable business model. Not only that, we're selling out of all our collections that we've launched as of 7 months ago. We also have really high profit margins. We're offering high quality products that stand out from existing market offerings. And we're a purpose-driven brand that gives back to the community. More than just that, Candela is not only focused on creating fashion pieces that will obviously make you look fabulous like Charlotte in the crowd, but we're creating impact. We're giving people that would have otherwise not have a job. We're allowing our country, which most of the time is portrayed in the news negatively, to have something else to portray itself with. I believe that there's so many special things about the handmade, and that's what Candela stands for. Our ask is really low, honestly. We're asking for $10,000 so we can continue to train women, design our new collection, and also pay for a team back in El Salvador. And we're also looking for mentors to establish connections, enhance brand visibility, and devise a robust strategy for sustainable expansion. And with that, I leave you Candela. This is the dream of a little girl that would design on her little notebook, and now I'm pitching in front of Georgetown students, so yeah, go Candela.
Moving so well. Okay, I think we can all agree that Candela is pretty amazing, and the pieces are so beautifully made. Bit of a shameless plug, but if you're anything like me and want all of these pieces in your closet right now, go follow _Somos Candela on Instagram. Hopefully the website will be up and running soon. Last but not least, we're on to our final pitch of the night from Open Grid. Founded by 2 second-year Georgetown MBA students, Open Grid is working to create a network of public electric vehicle chargers that tailor to urban driving using fast charging software and technology. Please join me in welcoming Theo on behalf of his co-founder, Nando, to the stage to tell us more about Open Grid.
Hey guys, my name's Theo, and I have the incredible, unenviable task of following all of these great founders. I'd like to give them another round of applause because they're all inspirational, they're all doing a great job. Thank you. So as you can see, I'm here on behalf of Open Grid. Today, Open Grid is developing a network of urban EV fast chargers, which deliver a new level of convenience for drivers, as well as offering an entry point into the markets for local small businesses. All right, so we conducted over 100 customer interviews over the past year, and this is a story that we heard so many times from urban EV drivers. So I'd like to introduce you to John. John is a conscientious consumer, and John thought it would be a great idea in 2023 to take advantage of some government rebates and invest in an electric vehicle. However, unfortunately for John, he lives in an apartment, and therefore he does not have access to his own charging port. So John has to share those charging ports with 30 other electric vehicles, and there are only 2 in his building. So what does that mean for John? John has to rely on public chargers, which are unreliable, slow, and far from home. However, You've heard that story before. I'm sure you have. There is another side to this coin that current offerings on the market are not addressing. And that is the fact that any business can provide charging services to EV owners. What is one thing that all small businesses in the city have in common? It's an electricity supply. So why can't we get that into cars? Turns out there's a lot of different reasons we can't get it into cars. Charging solutions as they are now require significant infrastructure investment. They're unreliable and slow, as mentioned before, and they're difficult to manage. So we at OpenGrid, we've developed a solution to all of these problems. I'd like to introduce you, oh, one of my slides went missing. I'd like to introduce you to the Odium One. As you can see, the Odium One is a charging station that has been developed fully, and it uses currently existing technology to deliver a level 3 fast charge without the significant upfront cost that you would assign to one of our competitors. And we have a picture of our first customer here with whom we were very happy to interact using a similar version of the technology. And Dante falls squarely into the bracket of urban EV driver that I addressed before. But it's not just the technology that makes a business. So with our B2B focus, we are not limited in the same way that our competitors are by infrastructure requirements. We can therefore analyze where EV chargers are going to be most effective, and we can then target businesses with whom we can partner in those areas, in those routes, wherever they might be. Our chargers, instead of taking 9 months, like some other companies would take, can be installed in days. Then OpenGrid will charge drivers revenue. And that will look something like this. So we can offer a dynamic pricing model based on, cost to supply the power or the demand of our services. And with the app enablement, we will, allow customers to have a subscription model for a further discount. And then this benefit then flows to business owners. So we are planning on delivering our charging stations at no cost to businesses. We'll install them for free and we'll manage them for free. We will then make our money from customers, and businesses will benefit by enhanced foot traffic in their stores, as well as a new income stream that allows them to capitalize on the decarbonation of our society. So we've been noticed. We are lucky enough to have raised $400,000 so far. This is through a combination of technology partners, and most recently through the Generator Accelerator Program, which is sponsored by US Venture, a significant power delivery company based out in Wisconsin. I will be going out there tomorrow to take part in programming and meet more investors or potential investors, and so we're really excited about that. On the customer side for Traction, we are revenue generating. As I mentioned before, it's a very small number so far. We have 50 driver signups. I think that number is out of date. We have more than that. And we've been holding multiple demo events throughout the DMV. So this picture here was taken with the Electric Vehicle Association of Washington, D.C., and they're a group that is representative of EV drivers overall. Early adopters who are very passionate about the investment that they've made in their vehicles, as they depend on it and they need good infrastructure. And so they are very invested in making sure that we are successful. Now, I mentioned before that we're going to provide those charging stations at no cost to businesses, and this is why. With a very modest 15% utilization rate, we'll generate $24,000 in annual revenue, which generates at least a 40% gross profit margin for us, meaning that we can pay back our initial upfront investment of installing the charger in less than 3 years. And we can do all of that for less than 20% of the upfront cost of our competitors and in a number of days, as I mentioned before. If you expand that, the EV market in general is going to grow 20% every year until 2030. There are currently less than 200,000 charging stations in the US, but in 2022 alone, more than 300,000 vehicles were sold. It's expected that more than 1 million charging stations will be required by 2030. And so if we install 3,000, which is quite a modest amount of that, we can generate more than $70 million of revenue. But who are we, you might be asking? So my co-founder Nambo is in the crowd. Nambo, raise your hand, let everyone know where you are. So we met in the MBA program, taking entrepreneurial classes, and we came together with a dream of working in sustainability and making it more accessible to everyone. And while we don't have technical experience, we're not electricians, for example. You've already seen the technology has been developed. The challenge now is to get it into the ground, get it serving people. And we think that with the Georgetown community and Georgetown education, we have the tools that are required for us to do that. And we will use, we have significant consulting and finance and supply chain experience to make that happen. And with special thanks to our Georgetown Ventures analysts who provided, invaluable support this semester. Really a very impressive group of people. I'm very glad they were on my team, helping us with, a variety of research projects and marketing materials, which will help us get to the next stage of our business's development. If I were to leave you with one ask today, we're not raising money at the moment. We have enough to get us through to installing our first charger. But what we do need, well, one, I'll say, if you're interested in what we're doing, I encourage you to use the QR code there. Find the sign-up form at the bottom of our website, and let us know that you're interested. If you are an EV, if you have potential interest in owning an EV in the future, then we're here for you. So we'd love to hear from you. Second, we would love if you or anyone you know is a small business or real estate owner in the DMV who might be interested in partnering with us to open up the grid for everyone. We would love to hear from them too, as we look to install our first charger. Thank you.
All right, can we have just one last round of applause for all of the startups that have presented today? Amazing job. Okay, so now we're moving on to one of the most exciting parts of Demo Day, the People's Choice Award. So if you scan this QR code on the screen, you can vote for who you think deserves the $500 in prize money. This QR code will be up for just a few minutes, so get your vote in and say which one you want to win the $500. While we're waiting for the results to come in for that vote, this is the QR code. If anyone in the crowd is interested in applying to our fall 2024 cohort, definitely recommend you can pitch like all of these groups did next semester. So just scan this QR code right here, and then we'll be back with the results in just a minute or two. Okay, guys, last 10 seconds to vote. Good. The whole team? Okay. Okay, guys, I think the results are in, and the Spring 2024 Demo Day People's Choice Award goes to, drumroll, Candela! Candela team, come up too. Charlotte and Adam, come up, come up. Come up, yeah. All right, one last round of applause for Candela. All right, and I know people are probably getting sick of me and really want to go get food. That was mentioned at the beginning of this, so I'll keep this super short, but we just hope that you all enjoyed hearing from GV's Spring 2024 founders and startups. Big thanks to our guest speaker today, Eric Wu, for coming all the way from San Francisco to be with us. So excited to hopefully get to talk to you at the reception. Just so everyone knows, the reception will be on the 4th floor in the Fisher's Colloquium. So feel free to head up there to talk, meet the founders, meet GV members, get free food and drinks. That'll be happening right after this. Just want to give a big shout out to GV's amazing leadership, Andrew especially, for everyone for putting on Demo Day, GV members, and all the founders for making this semester and Demo Day so memorable. Next Demo Day is obviously going to have a hard time living up to this, especially since I'll be away. But thank you all again for coming, and I hope you all have a great rest of your night.